Okay. So like I was saying, tonight I want to just show a couple more demonstrations on some more examples of ways you can use the sweep and or loft tools. Now, you don't have to use any or there's no any single way to approach this. Like I said, you can certainly use the form workspace to create this. And remember, this is just pink, not because it was using the form workspace. That's just the default color right now. Um, but this is more of a sculpted shape, a little more freeform. The sweep and loft tools allow you to make much more direct objects. So right now, I just wanted to focus on not the sweep or the loft, but I wanted to focus on the sweep ideas. So we have this one, which was using a sweep going up, twisting back and forth, and this one, the cone shape is the same profile, this star profile, and it is twisting all the way to the top in one single rotation path, but I have a taper applied to it. But one of the other ones I experimented with and wanted to show y'all was, and I accidentally did this upside down, it doesn't have to be central. You can have it offset or anything like that. And what this is exactly that. This is a profile that I've swept in this arc, excuse me, that I've also applied a taper to, but I just wanted to kind of experiment with streaks and things. So I wanted like points. But one of the things you have to be aware of, turning it whatever direction, is you cannot make a sweep path too tight because it can't self-intersect. What I mean by that, and I'll draw on the board here, but your profile can be whatever. So let's just say, I don't know, kind of like this. And well, hell, I'll just draw like basically what I did. I just made some squiggles. So like that, it would just be like a path would just be the squiggles on a circle. Basically, exactly what I did to make this one. Let me activate this component, open up my sketches, hide the bodies. So with this, it is essentially this squiggle shape. Don't worry about the circle, that's just there for that. So squiggle shape with points. But my path, in this case, is this oval, this ellipse. And this is a bit too tight. You can make your path squiggly, whatever, but it kind of needs to match. Meaning that this large profile, if this is taken, swept down this profile, or sorry, down this path, it will self intersect. But if I instead change this simply to a larger, more flowing sweep, or the sweep of this path is just larger, this object has less of a chance to run into itself. That's the main thing. If you make this path too tight, like this one, I was extremely limited by how far I can push this. So with that in mind, I wanted to show you all how to do something like this. So let me start a new component. And remember, if you're not in the hybrid mode, you can just change it over by going to document settings and changing over the hybrid mode. That's all. What to do? Oh, there we are. All right. Sweep. There. Good grind. There we go. Hooray, I can spell again. All right. So we'll start fresh. Let me close all this stuff up. There we go. So remember the combination, you need a path and a profile. One for a sweep. So we're going to start with a sketch. Let me just start from we'll go front. Doesn't really matter, but there we are. So with this, we'll sketch right there. And we'll do something like, first I'll do a bit of a sweep. that's a bit wider. And then I'll do a sweep. It's a little less extreme. I'll just go the opposite direction, but roughly the same heights. Okay. So the trick with this is I'm doing both of these starting from the origin point only because I'm going to make it convenient for myself, and that's where I'm going to make my profile. Or I'm sorry, my profile. So I'm going to start a new sketch on the XY plane, so perpendicular to all that. And this would be where I could start something like, we'll start with a center point circle. I don't know. Let's start by actually here. Let's make this something I can actually augment later. Let's go to polygon. And it doesn't matter in this case, again, if it's circumscribed or inscribed, that merely means whether or not the polygon, the facets, the flat straight lines are on the inside or outside of the circle. That's all that means. And with this, let's make it smaller so I can deal with it. And do not hint anything other than tab, and I can tab over and change the number of sides. So I don't know, let's make it 9 because I feel like it. Okay, now you can obviously make changes and all that. So I'll finish sketch. So now I have two options for paths. One a bit more extreme, one a bit softer. And I have a polygon as my profile. Obviously, you could make your own. You could make it not in the center. But for the case of this, this works better. So I'm going to try a couple of sweeps. So let's go to sweep. Or again, you can go down to create. Sweep, same deal. And ask you your profile. The profile is the round sketch or whatever. In this case, the polygon. Path. Now the problem is see how it's wanting to select both of these? That's because I have an option on here, or you have an option on the toolbox called chain selection. What that means is it's trying to grab the entire sketch because it's all touching each other. That's all. If I unclick that, now I can kind of select just one or the other. Or you could have just done these on two separate sketches. Whatever, same deal. And there we go. Now a couple of options here. One, you see how it also is kind of changing shape. It kind of squishes around as it goes up. That's because you have a couple of options on the toolbox under orientation. Right now, perpendicular means it is because the sketch began perpendicular to that plane. So what that means is my path goes up from a starting point, but my profile is perpendicular. So 90 degrees, or essentially starting at 90 degrees from another line. And that's why it's, bless you, and that's why it is augmented like that. But you can change the orientation from perpendicular to parallel so it keeps that orientation no matter where it is in the path. So just for reference, remove that, and I'll draw two of these. And what was it? Parallel. Brain fart. Parallel. So what's going to happen is perpendicular, it will stay perpendicular the whole way up, no matter what. Parallel, it will change. So it will much more likely keep the correct change, or it'll keep the correct profile as it goes up. So that's how you can play around with this. Now, of course, you still have the option to play around, but notice that now, because I've gone parallel, I no longer have the option to twist and anything like that. Because it's trying to keep the profile shape the whole time, it doesn't let you alter it anymore. But if I go back to perpendicular, now I have my options again of where I can twist it around and whatever. So those are the drawbacks, but at the same time, you get some kind of benefit. So it's up to you. It really depends. And since this is kind of a free form project, yeah, play around with it. Do whatever you want. You got that. You got tapers. Do a little bit. Taper. I don't know. 10 degrees, that's too much. 1 degree. Yep. Papers often will mess this up. So, especially with twisting, yeah, there's just too much going on. So, you can play around with these, and that'll work. But I want to keep this just at 90 for now, just to keep the variation there. So for the sweeps, that's a perpendicular. So that's a perpendicular sweep. I got to open those back up. Sweep, same thing, parallel, or sorry, profile. My path, same deal, but I'm going to switch that to parallel. There we go. So the one other option, let's try with that more extreme one. So my profile, my path is this more extreme one. With perpendicular, or sorry, parallel, it works. With parallel, dang it, I'm getting them backwards, I'm sorry. Perpendicular, you see where I start getting these strange pinches. So this is where, when you're trying to make too wide of a profile, you're gonna get some weird results. It's up to you, but do know that this is how you can end up with some oddities. But this can also give you some interesting things. So, like, I don't know, let me change it back to parallel. But this is where I could do something like, all right, say okay, and now I could do something like extrude the base, and I'll make a separate body out of that. Let's just say, I don't know, -10. That's kind of thick, but I'll do new body. And now I could possibly turn this entire thing up top into my lantern, and the bottom would be my base. So there's nothing saying you can't mess around with these as much as you like. So just to kind of stick with it, what did I say? Like 1 millimeter? Cool. There we go. I've created a strange pasta lamp. Spaghetti lamp in it. Well, okay, I guess technically more like penne pasta or something, but we'll not get into the foods. Actually, you totally should. But anyhow, yeah. So you can very quickly start to create some weird ones. So last class we really focused on like centralized ones. You don't have to stay centralized with this, nor does it have to stay a singular body. We could even go into like start mixing and matching. So say before I hollow this out, what if I add to it? Oh, not thicken. Use the sweep again, and I'll use that profile, and this time I'll use this path, and instead I could join the two together. Oops, I should not have joined that, because join, I gotta hide that base first. There we go. Now I can join them together and keep the base separate. So now I could have this extra pasta and lamp and hollow it out. Let's see what kind of trouble I get into trying to do this. Hey, super pasta lamp. So you can get some. So you start mixing and matching these things, and you can really get some pretty weird results. Um, but that's really where you can. That's really just the whole point of this project is I want you to experiment with these things. And technically, this doesn't even have to be hollow from the top, but you can hollow it completely inside out, or just leave it open. That way, you got kind of like an open area thing, or something like this can print more easily because the only flat horizontal space once you get up there is that vertical or is that very top. The rest works pretty well. We can treat the bottom just like we did before. Turn on section analysis, so we can still push upwards into this to make the threads and lock this together. Although, if you do go this route, I would highly recommend making your base wider because this would not be a very stable lamp. This would definitely need something of a wider base. There you go. So that's a really cool result. The other one I wanted to show you a bit more about is the form workspace. I know we talked about this a bit before. Let me save this. Double noodle lamp. because who doesn't need more food related stuffs? Um, let me bring up the form we were playing with before, the in-class quick version. So I wanted to just play around with this space a little bit more, just to show y'all a few other things that are ways to help you work in and out of this space. So with the form workspace, again, this is all locked behind this create form button. But again, it also does not save history. The sweep, we were just my double noodle form. Oops, gonna get an error by double hollowing. All of these steps, I creates a history. Sorry, creates captured history. The form workspace does not. Other than I made a form. It doesn't matter what all I did to the inside. There you go. So to play in this space, let me hide that original body. With this one, we can go to create form. So which again, just pressing the pink eraser button with the plus sign brings us into the form workspace. You can still do exactly what we just did in the form workspace. So I'm going to create a sketch. In this case, a path. So we'll do something like, again, the noodle space. And we'll try to keep it a little less extreme. Good. Finish sketch. And you see I'm still in the sketch, or I'm still in the form workspace, but I am technically in the form sketch workspace. Can I work outside of that, like create my sketches like I just did with the sweep and then go into the form workspace? Yes, absolutely. You could do the exact same thing. So in this one, I'm basically just going to repeat what I did. And in this case, I'll do the same. I'll do a polygon right in the center. We'll make it a little bit smaller this time. We'll do, sure, we'll keep it 6 sides just to keep it simple. And hit OK. So exact same thing I just did. I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to sweep. So we still have the same sweep, revolve, loft tools in the form workspace, but note the difference is that now instead of it being a solid surface or solid object, we are creating a form space or form object that we can manipulate. So it's the exact same thing, just a different set of tools. I'm going to sweep my profile, same hexagon, path, to that. It looks funky as can be, one, just because I made it a little bit too close. But the other thing, last time we talked about, keep it simple and then add complexity. Sometimes you can't do that. With the form workspace, especially when it comes to sweeps, lofts, and especially extrudes from a sketch, you have to add more faces right from the get-go, because if it's too simple, it simply cannot follow this path. So I'm going to use one of the sliders, and as I go, it's going to add more faces. And as I go, it's going to shape a little bit closer. Now that's kind of a bit much. Let's see if I can add faces to this. Maybe going this way. Well, oddly enough, in this case, it's not actually adding curvature, so funky. All right, well, I guess we're just going to ignore what I just said. Let's dial it back to where it was, and we can try to work at it from here. But all right, so I got pretty much a kind of funky fresh form, the same deal I got, only it's kind of twisted in on itself. I still have the same options, can it perpendicular or parallel? All right, now that's definitely fitting a lot better. I switch to the parallel option. I can add faces. It's not really, in this case, this time, it's not actually adding that much to me, or to my design. But other things, it might work better for you. From here, that'll work. I'll hit OK. Now, the problem is I don't really have a way to add symmetry, because with an even number, I would need a line right between here. So that kind of messes me up. But we did talk a bit about adding lines. So I could go to Insert Edge. And let's double click on this line. Nope, I want it on the other side. So let's say instead of 0.5, negative, because remember that from the line you selected, or the edge is you selected is 0 to the next one is 1. So 0.5 is right in the middle. It's just a scale. So I want it to be right in the middle. Cool. Okay. Let me do that again. Right here. Yeah, doing it again for me. So now I go the other way. Pain. Now I have a line right in the middle. Now I can go apply symmetry. So this, instead of selecting a line to go symmetrical, it asks you to select a face. Select one, and it's going to give you options, but in this case, I just want left to right symmetry. So select the exact same, and now you can see the green line appears. Now, whatever I do to it, it'll do the same on either side. It's just an easy way to keep track because you can get lost super easy in here. All right, let me save and form. Oh, I think I hit form sweep. Cool. Okay, so now let me pause this. It's so weird. Right. Okay, so now we got symmetry. I can play around with this. So we experimented last week also with, I've made this simple form. This is essentially the exact same thing as the sweep here, only because it's a form, I can actually manipulate these either by the lines, the faces, or the points in between. If I go to edit form, which modify the very first one, or it's this symbol here with the little like tri-star going out. Now I can play around with this. Now, right now that we played around with this a little bit before, but the thing is it can be very overwhelming because I can select just anything and like, oh my God, there's so much going on. The one thing I want you to really take note of is the selection filter on this toolbox. By selecting either by vertex, you can see all these points come up, but that's just where the lines intersect. It's a point. That's it. It's just the points in between. Or by the edges, that's literally the lines. You can select a single, or if you double click, it'll select everything down that line connected. Or the faces, and that's the space between all of those. You can select individual ones. You can select multiple ones. Because you have symmetry on, you see how it's highlighting the left side as I select on the right? There you go. But this is where you can really start playing around with these things. It's like I can grab one of these faces and I can grab one of the arrows and I can start dragging it outward and you can start manipulating things. You can get quite a long ways with this. Select multiples, do the same. You can grab one of these arcs and you can start rotating things. But all the while, don't go too extreme because once you do, now the whole thing becomes self-intersecting and it will not function. Yeah, I know, right? How did I create the like shoulder shrug thing? That's kind of entertaining, actually. But you can really play around with this stuff. But I highly recommend just isolating either by vertices, by edges, by lines. So again, I can select vertical or double click and it selects the whole thing, or horizontal ones, select one, or double click and it selects the whole ring, or by faces. Bless you. To the point to where you could even go so far as to select faces and by pressing and holding Alt or Command if you're on Mac, you can actually extrude and let go and repeat, and you can start getting all kinds of weird with this. This is not going to work well for your lamp, but we will be experimenting with this in the next project. So I'm just going to Control Z back to where I'm just working on the central faces, but you can get real weird with this. The other thing we played around with was, I'll go to the points, is you can shrink and stretch by the lines, and you can get some weird stuff with that too. Again, you can start getting organic with it, and like that. Now, the whole thing here is this is already a pretty angular form, but you can even add creases later on. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Actually, I don't like that thing that I just did. Anyhow, so you can really experiment with the shape itself by doing the exact same thing, sweep or loft. I didn't explain this loft in this part, but a sweep in this case. just in the form workspace, and you can start manipulating it. But remember, if I hit OK, finish form, it is only essentially a surface layer thick without any dimension to it. It's this. If I roll it up into a tube or whatever, this is what I get by hitting finish form, or I get errors. Depends. Oh, wow, that's the first time it's inverted for me. That's a new one. No, it's something for different. So the only way to add dimension to this is either capping either ends, or I can add thickness to it. While this kind of gets around what we were going to do by like making it solid and then hollowing it out again, I can go back. Let's right click, edit. So I can either put a top on it. So I go to modify, fill hole, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go to the bottom, double click. Now it's going to try and close up and make it roundy. I don't want that. So go back on the toolbox. One, keep creases. So I keep it flat like that. And then just find the one that fits your needs best. Like fill star makes a pretty smooth bottom. Collapse, it does the same, but it's kind of unnecessary. So I'm going to go back to fill star. For our purposes, our needs, just pick the one that looks right. And this isn't really a one over the other. We're not getting complex enough to really need to mess with the differences. Hit OK. That filled the bottom. Now, by the by, if you're noticing this kind of like strange mottled pattern, that's because since there is no history captured on this, what Fusion does, because I re-entered the edit form the form workspace, it gives me like a ghost of models past. So what I can do is, so if I go back to edit form, say, and I now shrink it in, see I'm left with this strange ghost. That's just showing you what was. That's all it is. It's just a reference so you don't get lost as easily. So when I hit OK, it's still going to stay there until I go to finish form. And we're back to the errors again. Self-intersecting lines. All right. Well, return. Yes. I already got it. Now, yeah, that figures. Now, how did it add symmetry the other direction? That's kind of impressive. All right. Well, time to troubleshoot. One of the things, if you're not going to make any more alterations of this, if you run into the like problems like this, like I don't know why the hell the green line, which is my symmetry line, is going the opposite way of the symmetry for the rest, just clear symmetry. So go to symmetry, clear. Hit OK. Oh, good Lord. That green line is my axis. It's not actually an error of the symmetry. It happens, okay? Let's try it again. Yep, fine. Returnify. So I don't know what is actually intersecting, other than it's probably just really too sharp of a point here. So I can try to undo this, or since I'm playing in the form workspace, let's go to like faces. I have to kind of fix this a little bit because I took off symmetry. But let me try like rotating that up. Nope, don't like that. Oh, I know. Select by edges here. And I'm dragging this out so that way down here, this bottom, it's just a less extreme angle. That's all. So let's try that. I'll hit OK. Double check I didn't create any like crazy results anywhere else. All right. So now we're going to try that repair body. Under utilities, repair body, select the body, auto repair. It didn't do squat. Fine. I know, right? Those stars are where the problems are. So the other things I found to fix stuff like this, delete it. Select that face and delete it. Because I think what might be the problem is the fill hole I did was probably a little bit too simple. So let's try going to like fill hole, double check. And instead of the star fill, I'll go to collapse. I always check that weld vertices one. Let's go to that one. Worked. So it's just, so all I needed to change was it didn't like how I filled the hole. Change to the other option. and it made all these extra lines here, but that doesn't really do anything. Now it's gold right now because it's still only a thin surface. So I got to go back in. I didn't need to finish edit or finish form right there. I just wanted to test if it worked. And now I can either cap this or we use the shell to hollow out a solid. Let's use the thicken tool to do the opposite and see if we can add thickness to a surface, to something that's super thin. All right, that's already hollow when it works, but now it's 1 millimeter thick. So it's just the opposite thing. Crap, errors. All right, well, I might have to go the other route anyhow. Fine. So I'll undo that thicken, and fine. We'll just. I tried to be smart about it, but smart no good here. So fine. It's gonna make me do it the other way. All right. Well, there we go. So I made a funky, weird, now solid object again. Let's see if it'll let me hollow it out. Ooh, I don't know if it's gonna do it. I think I just made something horribly ineffective here. Oh, good God. I'm gonna have to actually select these faces individually. All right, I created a nightmare. So oh no, it worked. Cool. All right. The tangent chain was deselected, so weird. So it wouldn't let me thicken for the start, but it will let me use the shell to hollow it out. Oh, weird stuff happens. So I just wanted to show you all a couple of different options there. Let me use the section analysis again just to cut it in half and show you what I got going here. So same deal. We're just using different methods, different versions of the same tool to make our hollow shape here. So whether or not you use the sweep as it is, you can combine multiple sweeps, still make something hollow, or you can even use the form version of the sweep and make something kind of funky and individually manipulate it a little bit. You can still get to the same result in the end. So different ways to get there. Just want y'all to experiment, but you don't necessarily have to go every which way to get there, but there are some different options so you can experiment more. We will be experimenting more and specifically using the form tools in the next or the final projects. So try not to get lost, and if you do, at worst, you might have to delete a face and fill it back in using a different option, or use the fill hole with like a different option in the toolbox. That usually fixes it. So there you go. Hopefully you don't get too lost. Hopefully.